Welcome to Very Wrong About Games video review. We also have an unboxing and a very unhelpful overview, or you can just click on the review on the bottom, or just watch all three as it plays through. Here we go. All right, welcome to the unboxing. This is going to be Cosmic Frog. What I'm going to be looking for here is A, do the frogs look cool? And B, part of the game is the thickness of the tiles. So I really want to see if they're a good difference in thickness and how thick they are. And of course, the frogs must be froggy. So there's Cosmic Frog by Devious Weasel Games. In this game, you control a 2-kilometer sized frog hurtling through space, eating fragments of planets. So they come with a neoprene mat, which is super nice. Here are the frogs. And they're all the same color. Oh, they're going to have rings on them. So I've seen a bunch of different production photos of what these were going to look like. I thought there'd be all different kind of colored plastic, but these would be cool. So it looks like there are 2 different sculpts, 4 of one and 2 of another, which is odd, but that's what it is. 3 different sculpts. Oh yes, there we go. Yeah, so 2 of each, 3 different sculpts. Currency, very nice. Look at that, super giant crystals. Area colored bases, so you can play up to 6 players. Yikes! And see how these click on. Oh, beautiful! Look at that. Nice. No falling off. They fit in the hex nicely. And then this is, like I said, this is the other thing we need to check. This is the thickness of these hexes. So nice big cards. These are all special abilities that you sort of cycle through. Once again, talking about it. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then everyone gets their own little sheet. And also when the plant, once again talking about the game, but anyway, parts of the fragments start exploding apart, and this tells you the random place it's going to come down. Dice, which is nice. Rounded edges, which I hate, but it comes with an insert in the box. That's always nice. What? No hidden envelope. All right. Now, like I said, this will be the deal breaker. Let's see. Oh, yeah, super chunky. And then let's get a thin one. So that would be the difference between the 2. I'm wondering if it's on the board, whether you can tell the difference or not. It's not too bad, actually. So I've only played this on Tabletop Simulator, so that will be the difference, like how long is it going to take to set up a map, putting all these tiles out. We will have to see. And the rule book, that was the other issue I had. I'm wondering for its weight, whether it's a lot of text for the weight of the game. It's really not as difficult as this rule book makes it out to be, but we'll see. I'm interested to go through it again. The art is amazing. The whole concept is amazing. That's Cosmic Frog. This will not be a rules explanation. This is just going to be a completely unhelpful summary, so you can get an idea of some of the mechanisms that go on here in Cosmic Frog. So, the planet has been fragmented, and the gods have decided that it's time to put it back together, but they just don't have enough of the cosmic butter to do that. So they said, well, we're going to scrap that and we're just going to make a whole new planet. But someone's got to clean up this mess, they say. So the guy says, don't worry, I got this covered. I've been working on these Reapers. They're 2-mile-high frogs with an unquenchable hunger for planetary shards. We'll just throw a small star inside them to power them up, and we'll send them out, and they'll clean up this mess. Yes, this is Cosmic Frog. So the game revolves around this action deck. So when the game begins, you simply flip the first one, and whoever's color it is, they're going to take an action. So the actions are different depending on what you want to do. There's some actions you can do on the shard. There's some actions you do when you're in the outer rim, and there's different actions you do in the ether, and some of them are the same. So when you're down on the shard, you can leap across, and you do it like penguin style, where you have to go, in a straight line along the hex sides, and you get to move as much room as you have in your gullet here. So as you devour planetary shards, you get heavier and you can't jump as much. And if you jump into another frog's hex, then there's going to be combat. And one of the main parts of the game is harvesting. When you land on a pile of planetary shards here, you can take another action that's called harvest, and you simply take one of the shards and you put it into your gullet here, and it slides down to the bottom of your frog type stomach. So once you've taken one action, you get to decide whether or not you want to spend 2 of this oomph. Now this oomph is another major part of the game. It lets you, boost a lot of your actions, because your frogs all have special abilities, some of which take oomph. And like I talked about before with the leaping, if you can't leap as much as you want to, you can spend a little more oomph and get a little bit further. Now for these 2 bonus cards, first one is this Ether Flux. It's this like wave of mutation that washes over the shard, and then players have to decide whether or not they want to change up their special ability. They can spend like 1 oomph to keep what they've got, spend 2 to draw 1 and choose between the one they have and the new one, or simply don't spend anything and draw a random one off the top. Now the Splinter Strike is what's going to bring along the end of the game. With Splinter Strike, you're going to flip over this Splinter Location card, and it's going to be a picture of the shard here, and it's going to show you exactly where the fragment impacts the shard. So here it's telling us that it strikes this, and that means we remove everything from this tile completely. If there was a frog there, they would be knocked out to the ether here. They'd lose all of their shards that were in their stomach, and they'd lose all their oomph, and it's not bad. It's not good at all. It's terrible. The other thing that happens, everything around that hex that just got destroyed is now removed, and these barren tiles that are left, they're all flipped up. And these were put out randomly. So what could be here are these special tiles here. And they're going to go over on this track, and as soon as this track is filled, the game will end. All right, a quick explanation on how your vault works. So firstly, a frog has jumped around and harvested a bunch of planetary shards. They come in and they work their way down to the bottom of his gullet like so, as he harvests them with individual actions. Now somehow he's gotten out to the ether and hasn't been attacked, or no one's stolen his shards from him, and now he gets to take an action. So he wants to disgorge his belly into his vault. So he has to start at the top, so it's last in, first out, and he gets to put them anywhere in his vault that he wants, but he wants to do it in a certain way because of scoring. So he'll, from the top out, he'll put them in. Now there's other interesting things you can do in your vault. We've talked about how important oomph is, and if you make a tile sandwich with your tiles. So if you have tiles from the same domain in a tile sandwich, and this is what I'm talking about here, these 3 tiles are all from the same domain. So if you place them in your vault in a way that it's a small one followed by a thicker one and then a small one on top, that means that is now a siphon. And that means at the beginning of your next turn, for every siphon that you have, you get to add +1 oomph immediately for no action. So it's fairly handy. All right, so so the game is done. The shard integrity has gone to a point where, everything's exploded, and now you have to score. All points are going to come from your vault here. So, and it's all listed on your vault, so it's fairly handy. How many different lands are represented in your vault? And there's 4 different kinds. There's, you know, the grasslands, the mountains, the desert, and the water. So if you've somehow gotten one of each into your vault in any configuration, then you're going to get 9 points. And depending on how many you have, that is the number of points you're going to get. Then you're going to do a top-down view of your vault, right? And then you're going to see here how many you have in a straight line. So if this is all that somehow I've gotten in my vault, it's 3 in a straight line, then I'm going to get, because they're lowlands, I will only get 6 points. If they're all the highland tiles, which are the thicker ones, then they are worth more points. And you can get them in lines however you like. And then you'll remove them. So you're going to have, you can have something like this, where you're going to have tiles all mixed up. This is a terrible thing because I've got no siphon points, but it'll be something like this. This means no one's attacked me somehow, and I don't know how I got this many shards in my vault, but you know. So like I said, you get this top-down view. It's 2 tiles in a line, and then you simply remove those, and then you do another view. So you can take them off in whatever order you want, and you can make this, it's a very interesting puzzle on how to get as many in a line as you can, and take them off in the right order so you can score the maximum number of points.
Hello. I'm not a condescending idiot, but I play one on the internet. Is your gullet feeling not so fresh? Have you been suffering from VPD? Ask your doctor if Cosmic Frog is right for you. So here's the thing about Jim Felly. Jim Felly is what I would call the sort of mad genius of the board gaming world. Everything he's done has been iconoclastic, very much like the rest of his publishing division. He started with Shadows of Malice, which was kind of an unapologetically old school co-op adventure-y thing, where you roll thousands and thousands of dice. And on the strength of that, he then released Zimby Mojo, which is hard to describe, best seen to be believed. And then there was Bemused, which is a game where you try to drive artists to kill each other. And then he released by far his most conventional design, which was Houses of Dur. And in that game, you basically imply that your opponents have slept with goats. At least that's how we play it. And now there's Cosmic Frog, because he decided that what the world needed was a game about 3 Mile High immortal frogs. Walker, how do you know that a frog's immortal?
You can't kill it.
It never croaks.
It never croaks.
And as Walker gave you from the overview, this is not exactly what you would call a conventional design, which is very appropriate. Jim Felly has no interest in chasing trends or following what's hot, and as a result, everything he does feels authentic and unique, even when, and perhaps even especially when, I don't like it. So what do we think about Cosmic Frog, Walker?
I think it's fantastic. So far, you got giant frogs, and they gorge themselves on planetary shards, and then they puke it back into their vault. They're hungry, Mark. They're hungry frogs.
I honestly think that this is the first time I enjoyed Houses of Dur. I saw flashes of all his previous designs, but this, I think, is the first time where I think Felly is firing on all cylinders, and I think he's really come into his own, because this is finally the marriage of absurdity and uniqueness and solid gameplay that I really enjoy.
Yeah, not only, I think it's a marriage of sort of like combat-y, a marrow track, everything together. Like I wrote an article a long time ago how, Euro games killed my gaming group. But I just think that this is, just because it gets people to fight each other. You can't hold up in your own little vault and do your own little thing because, you'll win, so no one's going to let you do that.
It's funny you put it that way, because you can play that way. The problem is, as you say, anybody else who's playing the game quote-unquote properly, and I say this with some reservations, because normally when we talk about playing a game properly, it's because the game is very fragile, right? And if you play the game improperly, the game falls apart. Cosmic Frog is very robust, despite the fact that it is a very, very unfair and in many ways arbitrary game, because it sets up an environment where you just have to jump on top of people's heads. Like the incentives, we complained about incentives in the context of Eclipse, right? How they weren't quite calibrated enough to encourage inter-party aggression. the incentive structure in Cosmic Frog is calibrated just right so that you know when it's time to go jump on someone's head, and that's marvelous.
Yeah, and we talked about it being like that ABC problem that we're talking about, that if you weaken somebody, then everyone else jumps on them. But I think that is offset a little bit, because that one person that has been weakened and knocked out here into the outer dimension, he might not have the shards that you need. And the other person is already on the shard with you, so you're not going to like jump off and then raid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the options, there's so many options there that ABC problem is a little bit, diluted.
It's there to a certain extent. If I attack you and I fail, if I attack you, say, twice in a row and I fail, that does weaken us both. Because ultimately, the thing that I think keeps Cosmic Frog together is you have to be conscious of who can attack you. Okay, if I'm here, I know that either of these two frogs are one move away from landing on me. If I'm over here, I know that these two frogs are one move away. If I'm over here, I know that this one can attack me right away. And so therefore, I have to be at full energy or an empty gullet or both.
And the energy is the thing that really locks this game in, because there's so much. It's called oomph, and there's so much there because you don't want to get caught without any. It lets you move further. It lets you take an extra action. You have to make sure you have some left for when that wave of mutation comes across and everyone's mutation changes. You got to have that so you can spend it either to keep it or to have options there.
And that brings up these ability cards, because this is one of the things that I think that Cosmic Frog gets really, really right from a design perspective. There are all these special abilities that are these absolutely beautiful pieces of card art, and they cycle through at a really good clip. You have this great ability. If you want to keep it, you can. It's expensive, but it's going to cycle through. So you see lots of these different things that are both aesthetically pleasing and interesting in terms of gameplay effects. The one area, though, where I think Cosmic Frog really does show its felly sort of I don't care how fair the game is roots. Once you've been punted to the outer dimensions, you're effectively in skip a turn land.
Yeah, that's what I said. But then if you're rated, it lets you move along the thing faster, and if you roll correctly, then maybe you'll get to move. It is, like you said, a problem that it is sort of miss your turn.
In fairness, there are variants to address this, and going forward, I would probably play with those variants. There are other variants that make these tiles of variable victory point value, perhaps even hidden variable victory point value. I am not interested in those variants because, as I say, I relish in the fact that Cosmic Frog is a little unfair and very aggressive, but I don't want to make it that arbitrary. But on the topic of these terrain tiles, though, because the components are obviously beautiful in terms of the art, in terms of everything else. I was concerned about this from a manufacturing perspective because these two kinds of tiles, Highlands and Lowlands, I'm not sure how clear it is in the camera, they have to be immediately distinguishable on the board for important scoring purposes, and they are. It's marvelous. The components are chunky. You can immediately see which things are which.
Yeah, that's the other part. You can look at someone's board. There's no hidden scoring in this game, so you can look at their board, see how they've got it set up, and you'll know what's going on. We sort of hinted at the oomph and the fact that the wave of mutation, and that's all centered around the action deck, which I think is pretty interesting as well. You're going to go through this action deck, and it sort of sets the tempo of the game because you can see how many actions a certain frog has done or how many you have to come up, and you can sort of get away with certain things, right? You can say, well, he's already done his 4 actions or 3, so there's no way he can actually get to me, and I still have 3 left. And I think it does this really interesting tempo if you really watch how that goes.
As somebody who's a little more steeped in the wargame tradition, it's a chit pull activation system. Everyone's going to get the same number of activations. You know what's going to happen. You just don't know in what order. And ultimately, it drives the game clock as well, because it drives these splinter strikes where sections of the universe come and destroy the board. And that random ending, I actually really enjoy. It's a lovely little bit of tension. It usually comes with a little bit of surprise, just the right amount of surprise. It's really well calibrated.
Yeah, that's what I think, because it's in the action deck. You go through it, and it doesn't come up on the first go through, but the second, we put in the mutation thing where everyone gets a chance to, like you said, you talked about those powers, then everyone gets to change them up if they want to, and like you just said, I'm not going to repeat it, just a really cool end game mechanism.
Any other shortcomings you see with Cosmic Frog there, Walker?
No, I don't have, like I said, we already talked about a bunch of variants. The combat system is really quick and easy. Like you said, on the cards, everyone has different combat, whether it be here or in the outer dimension or the rating thing, and then you roll the right colored dice, and like I just saw on Kickstarter, you don't roll a D12 and high die wins. They're actually calibrated dice. It all, depends on,
I think you're overselling it. It is still awfully arbitrary.
Well, I mean, like, in that there's so much other things going on.
Yes.
I'm glad
Fair enough.
they made it nice and simple, and
high die wins, but the dice are different. They're all D6s.
Make no mistake, your group has to be ready to fight. As I say, the incentive structure is there to encourage you fighting, but if you get your feelings really hurt by being targeted, and a lot of people do, don't play Cosmic Frog. I will say, though, that it is blunted. Like when we play Eclipse, or a lot of other games or Kemet, or any of these other fighting games, even when there's lots of fighting involved, sometimes you can get your feelings a little bit out of joint from being targeted a lot. I find that Cosmic Frog, partially because of the setting and partially because of the rules mechanisms, really do blunt a lot of those serious, hard feelings. It's like, hey, we're just Cosmic Frogs punting all over each other. It's like, yeah, I'm going to steal your gullet because you had what I needed. All right, and then you move on.
And the just the stealing stuff and the building your little puzzle, right? Because it matters in what order that you eat them in, because you have to disgorge them into your vault in the right order. So you got to make this interesting. No, I shouldn't oversell it. It's not this overly interesting puzzle, but it matters. You can't
There's also a little bit in terms of protecting your vault, right? Because you can only steal the top stuff on the top layer, so you can bury the more valuable stuff. Yeah, there's a little bit going on.
And it goes back to that oomph that we're talking about. You can make these cool little siphons where you have to make a little land sandwich of particular tiles, and it gets you oomph back every turn. But
I've been looking for a free-for-all game, not necessarily a strict combat game, but a game where it was everyone against everyone. There's no team-based element here. It's not a troops on a map game, but I want if I want a game where you have multiplayer fighting, two-player, there's a million of them, and troops on a map, there are lots of them. But whether it's the multiplayer versions that are tacked on to systems like Unmatched, or a lot of those other skirmish games that just don't work and are not satisfying, whether it's something like GKR, which still Giant Killer Robots, which stands out as a disappointment to me, where the multiplayer rules just didn't work. This is finally the multiplayer free-for-all, lots of fighting is going to happen game that I've been looking for years. And I think on that metric alone, it is a great success.
Yeah, as long as everyone understands how it's going to work as the game starts and knows what they're going to get into, then I think it's a fantastic game. The only shortfalls I see is like the setup.
Oh, yeah?
A little bit of a bear, because these are all single tiles that you have to lay out all over the map, and you got to do this at the beginning of every game. See that there's a lot of tiles, Mark.
You don't say.
So that's a review of Cosmic Frog by Jim Felly.